Peter. And okay, so this is the February 2022 Metro North Railroad Community Council meeting, and again, I welcome everybody. So we can't, even though we're high in numbers, we can't approve anything. So
Why don't you do
guess
it
we'll just go.
in case? Why don't you just take a, if we could, then we would motion.
That could work. So, so if,
in case of a crack in the legislation.
all right. So anyway, can we? Everybody would like to approve the agenda, or acknowledge, or signal, or sign, or whatever that you like the agenda. Thank you. Okay, it looks like everyone is on board with this. And the same for the minutes. If there are any questions for the minutes, please speak now. Or all right, all in favor of the minutes? All right, thank you.
Rich just whereas the Zoom link, so I will send it to him, resend it to him.
All right, so my chair's report was there. Thankfully, there wasn't much to report. So at the time I wrote it, we were waiting for official confirmation on Grand Central Madison, and that's going to take place on the 27th. Full schedules will be there. There's still controversy about them, but that'll be handled by the Long Island Railroad eventually. And there was a shutdown of the Port Jervis line yesterday because of a freight train, a slow speed freight train development of Norfolk Southern, and the service was destroyed for the day. They did get some bus service up. I don't have reports about it, but I know that happened. And service is back today, although I did check earlier and saw that there were delays on the Port Jervis line. There was a derailment, actually it was a collision with the bumping post at the New Canaan station, but that's, in Connecticut. I actually happened to be there last year. We were in the area, and so they're investigating the cause of the thing. So I'll pass it on to Lisa to talk about the executive budget.
Thank you very much.
Lisa spent a lot of time in Albany and Cara, getting to learn things up there, so I will leave it for them to explain it.
So, in fact, I've been to Albany twice this year already, within the span of a week and a day. The governor released her executive budget in January, and in that budget, she included several funding proposals for the MTA, as she had said she was going to do. The primary funding mechanisms include an increase in the payroll mobility tax from 34 cents to 50 cents for eligible companies in the 12-county MTA area region, $500+ million increase in payment contributions from New York City, which is even further the city's payment for PMT, full payment for Accessorize, and increases their payment towards school MetroCard /Omnibus. There would be a $300 million contribution from the state as a one-shot. If they can do it once, they should be able to do it once. And there was also revenue in the future from casinos that would come, again, primarily from the New York City region. It still has to get through the legislature. The mayor went up to Albany yesterday to express his displeasure and concern about the fact that the city can't afford $500 million. This is when the negotiations begin. The first time I went up, which was February 6th, was the joint legislative budget hearing for transportation. And the Senate, the senators, and assembly members were focused on a number of things, including what it would cost to keep, to prevent the fare hike, to fund free buses, to fund 6-minute service, and to make the MTA solvent, along with several other issues that are proposals that were included in a package of legislation called Fix the MTA. Now, within the Fix the MTA legislation, there is a piece of specific legislation that would make our members voting members on the MTA board, and would also include a new seat on the board, a voting seat on the board for an accessorized user. So this is not the first time that this legislation has been put forth, but it's probably the first time it has a very good chance of happening. There are several other things within that legislation, why we went up this most recent Tuesday, that include improving transparency at the board level, within the MTA, lockboxing capital funds, doing utility relocation legislation, and several other things. And that's, if you'd like to see more about that, it's at a website called fixthemta.com. The BCAC and its councils have not signed on to every piece of legislation, but broadly speaking, we are, of course, in agreement that funding the MTA is paramount for riders. We have not had a conversation about whether or not fare hikes should go forward or not. There have been a lot of there has been a lot of back and forth so far already between leadership in the Senate and the MTA and the governor's office about whether or not it's fair to have fare hikes at this time. I think that the position we've taken is when something comes before us, we'll decide whether or not what to say about it. But this is, of course, your counsel and your opportunity to make. So the budget now, conversations have begun. The next step is the Assembly and the Senate up with their versions and their recommendations. The major points of contention are not whether to fund the MTA, but how to fund it. We, as staff, have been hard at work with our very smart intern, who many of you have met, and putting together, and you've seen them and commented on them, ish list of potential operating revenue streams and sources of existing legislation or proposed legislation that could be used for operating revenue, and costing that out. And our next step is to share that with the MTA to make sure the numbers are and input that into a funding thermometer that visualizes what it would take basically to make the MTA whole over the next 4 fiscal years. And we're getting almost to the point where we're ready to use that more publicly, but we still want to double and triple check all of the numbers with the number of dollar people. Right? Am I getting that? So the budget dance will be very interesting this year, particularly given the what happened in Albany yesterday and the power balances and how they will play out. There's a lot of need. I would say there's a lot of dollars, and we'll be back in Albany. I don't know when, but we'll be back there. The next trip this weekend is the caucus weekend that we as staff are not planning to attend, but members of other councils will be at meetings and at caucus events and discussing needs and priorities as well with members. So we're continuing to be represented, advocating for the needs of riders, and are very interested in hearing what your thoughts are, and we'll keep you posted as delicate stance and negotiation.
Thank you. All right, anyone want to comment from the council?
I had just I guess, comments, maybe not questions, but when I listened to the governor's State of the State address, she talked about all of this wonderful stuff. And I'm the kind of person who's sitting there saying, that sounds great. And how are we going to pay for that? And now we have the taxes that are proposed during a time when, you know, the economy is unstable. So obviously, that's a big issue to deal with. Lisa, the question that I have, and part of this is me being still the newbie, you mentioned that there was some conversation about, quote, our members voting on the MTA board. Who do you mean? Who are our members?
Sure.
So this.
We have, our councils has a non-voting seat on the MTA board. Randy represents Metro North Railroad Commuter Council.
Okay.
Jerry Bringman is the PCAC chair at this time, and also the chair of the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council, and Andrew Albert is the chair of the New York City Transit Riders Council. He's also the longest serving member of the MTA board, which, as he would say, just makes him old, but it actually just makes him incredibly knowledgeable about the entire system. All of our members are incredibly knowledgeable about the system. They probably used, ridden, traveled on, worked at, on it for a combined number of years, more than anybody, than the rest of the board members put together. So it's, you know, it's, I'm not quite sure why the seats were designated as non-voting seats, but there are also labor seats that are non-voting. It's not within the legislation that they be made voting seats. There are something called quarter pounders, for members who have a quarter of a that's not within the legislation, but that, you know, could certainly be taken up by others. You know, I think our interest is in making sure that the voice of riders is continuously represented on the board, not just with voice, but with vote. Also to send a message to the elected officials who appoint our members that it's important to fill the seats, vacancies, that we have on our council. As we've discussed, LinkedIn, not just our councils, but PC.
So I just wanted to expand on what Lisa's reference to quarter pounders. There are the four counties north of Westchester, Orange, Rockland, Putnam, and Dutchess, even though all of the residents pay the same 0.25% tax that everybody else in the MTA 12 county region pays, we only have a quarter of a vote each. So they need all four of them to make a full vote, or I think two of them makes a vote. So that this has been an inequity since that whole system was created.
Quite a few years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So actually, with Randy gets a vote, he would have more of a vote than the Rockland County representative. One thing though I do want to address with the new tax, you mentioned the tax.
Can you join us?
The interesting
Yeah.
proposals that the government are not new. They're add-ons to
All right, I guess
existing
you
tax.
see you there. Okay.
Yeah.
You see him? Yeah. You see him, Rich?
Randy,
No.
What do you mean you have
I
a
don't
Zoom?
see
You don't have a Zoom link? You didn't get to.
they're add-ons to existing taxes and fees. So it's, you know, something that we've, in the advocacy community, and others have discussed for the past number of months, is that there's probably very likely no appetite that was just going to be a non-starter, particularly given the economic situation and inflation and things of that. So
How viable is the conversation around free buses?
well, how viable is it? The MTA says that they, and some of our leadership, and our leadership, in fact, not some, but the chairs of PCAC, have expressed concern that that opens the door to things like people just not paying at all when they then go from bus to subway. and from taking ridership away from subways. And so reducing revenue at a time when they're trying to increase ridership and revenue. Some of the proposals that have been put forth are for a slow start, and in some areas where there is not, where there's not subway service, so that would, provide some kind of equity. The MTA is quite opposed to it, but, I think that there is a strong voice and group of legislators who are very supportive of it, including the number 2 in the Senate. So, I think if some of the legislative issues don't need to be part of the budget, but that would be because it would need to. So, I think it's a conversation that has started, and even if it doesn't happen, momentum will build, and it's gonna continue to be a conversation. But at this point, it's all part of the negotiations that are happening that will end up with 3 people in a room, or 2 people in a room with 1 person banging on the door trying to get in.
Mike, any comments?
I hope.
Roz, are all your questions answered, Roz?
For now, I had another question that maybe I should save.
Go ahead.
I was just curious as to where we are with the electric bikes on trains, because, with the recent fire in the Bronx, have we established a position, or are we still muddling through it?
So we have established a position, but the MTA has not established their criteria and their rules and regs. And Peter and Sandy, maybe you have more of an update on where those are than I do. Last I heard, it was almost finalized, but there's still not. It's still not over the edge yet. And the New York City Fire Commissioner wrote a letter to the federal government today, asking, maybe stronger than asking, that there be a stronger review and oversight on imports of lithium-ion batteries and bikes and devices. Use them to ensure that they are that they're compliant, that they're not hazardous, and that they're not going to cause the kind of catastrophic incidents that. So I had a conversation with a guy who manages Grand Central Madison and said, can you just at least put up signs that say no riding, no charging? That they're still working on the lane. And also because of the historic nature of that particular building, we have to go through SHPO for preservation. But I think that's continuing, but next week. And I think it absolutely makes sense to raise that, and we will.
Which is on there.
All right,
So
then.
that's a answer to, we don't have an answer, but we're going to continue to pursue one. And Peter and Sandy, I asked if you had any information, and then just kept talking. So, apologies if you have more of an update.
I'm not sure if I related the story, but after Walter and I left the December PCAC meeting, we got on a train at Grand Central, and the car that we walked into, there was a guy who was one of the new contract 38 cars with the center door and the newer cars, and there was a fellow with a bike plugged in, and I said to him after we got our seats, I said, you can't do that. Well, no one has ever said anything to me about it. So I immediately sent the text to Pat Warren, and he called me. He says, what do you want to do? I said, I send the police, but don't do it here. Let them beat us at 125th because I don't want to delay the departure of the train. So guess what they did? They sent the police to Grand Central. Anyway, the first officer walked in there and he saw that. He immediately snatched the cord right out of the thing and disconnected it, wrapped it up and handed it to the guy, told him, don't do it again. And then I spoke briefly with it was a high-ranking officer who was there, and he wanted me to get off. I said, I'm not getting off the train. I said, if you have any questions, call me. I have enough. I'm going home. So anyway, that was the end of it. But those things are, we need to get them to put out some regulations. The sooner the better.
Yeah, I think that's worth raising at the board, Randy. I'm not sure when your briefing is, but maybe you can you can raise that.
It was this morning.
Okay.
All right.
To
Hey,
answer Lisa's question,
Hey, Lisa, if I could just, go ahead, Sandy.
I don't know anything regarding the wording or any updates, but I can ask Andy and we can get back to you.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Welcome, Rich.
Peter, you were about
Yeah, Lisa, let me, I just want to chime in. So on the first thing, there is a personal electric vehicle on board rule. So the conductors, the onboard staff is aware of it. That rule change has been in effect since July of last year. It does include that they're not allowed to be charged on trains or at passenger stations. So that rules for personal electric vehicles. So that is in effect. So it's obviously the conductors are supposed to advise any of the patrons, any of the riders of that if they do see it. So obviously if there's a reason for requiring MTA police to come on board, that's a different conversation. It would leave it at that. In regards to policies and procedures, Randy, I can't speak to what conversation you had with Pat, but certainly Pat's office is certainly well aware. They've been leading a study on this matter, and they were anticipating bringing rules to address this matter to the board. I don't know if it's coming this month, but I presume it is not, since I haven't heard otherwise. But it is something that the safety department under Pat Warren has been reviewing for several weeks, and they've been integrating multiple pieces of information, including working with the fire department as well as our own internal staff, as well as other external people. So they are progressing, but I can't speak to where they are on announcing and bringing to the board what rules and policies and procedures they want to put in place.
Thank you. Michael, did you want to say something?
Just another question about the executive budget, if that's okay. I was just curious, is there any, obviously a big piece of the budget is housing and land use, and part of that is tied to the suburban stations on Long Island Railroad and Metro North. Is there any pressure for the PCAC to take a position on that, or interest in that, or?
so that's like a wolf's den.
That's,
And I should say
I'm not encouraging it, I'm just asking.
Within New York City, the position that we've taken is that if there are going to be large-scale developments and changes in zoning that don't touch on the zoning for accessibility regulations, that there should be some kind of requirement or baseline for transit improvement funding included in those developments. The suburban counties, I spend a lot of my time understanding, and by understanding, listening with the phone pulled away from my ear, to the concerns of people who are big supporters of home rule and who are very engaged in the housing development, not-for-profit, affordable housing, working with the MTA, even TOD, but they're supporters of home rule, and I think it's clear that housing is going to be as affordable, housing and affordable housing, ensuring that our region continues to grow and transit is part of that. I think that I don't know if that's a fight we want to get in, but again, it's your council. So the Westchester County Executive has grown his office into one that is more supportive of affordable housing than TOD that has happened in the past. I know Rich is very engaged and involved in some of the TOD projects that have been mentioned as that have been held up as aspirational. And there are a lot of things that I might say were not included in the house. So we're, looking and considering how we can look into it as a research project, without necessarily jumping headfirst into very shallow water.
Yeah, that might be the right approach, right? Is let's wait and see what happens in the legislative process, and then we can react and talk about the effective implementation.
I think that, the MTA has had a TOD office for a long time and has really been very astute at the way they've worked with and tried to work with localities. And for a very long time, affordable housing and apartments, multiple dwellings have been looked at as, not welcome in a lot of places, but I think that conversation is, and I've seen that change, but there are a lot of people who are engaged directly in the housing discussion who don't know that that's right. But that, again, whatever you all decide that you want us to do, I think that we have the opportunity to look at it from a research perspective on zoning overlay and transit and what it could potentially look like without duplicating what's already happening.
Okay. Any more on that subject? Okay. All right, so we'll go now to old business. The Rich, you're up.
Rich, we don't hear you.
Unmute.
I don't know, Rich, have you connected to the audio? Jason, we'll get to you, don't worry.
Rich, we're not hearing you, Rich. Are you hearing us? Shake your head if you're hearing us.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're not hearing.
And I saw his mouth moving.
Join with audio.
We're not hearing you at all.
No, he's
Now you say you're muted.
Okay.
just
Rich, unmute yourself.
Okay.
It's also his volume probably, yeah.
You might need to rejoin the meeting.
Try leaving.
Oh, connecting to audio, there we go.
Okay.
Yes. Video now.
You,
Rich, was that just you saying something? Yeah, I know that Jason had his hand up, but I don't know if you want to take Jason while Rich has,
all right,
Sure. I'm seeing that Rich is having issues with his audio, but Rich is still on. So last week I was attending New Jersey Transit's board meeting It was awful, learning the sudden resignation of Cedric Fulton after 3 years being the vice chair of New Jersey Transit. We know the behind the scenes what happened. We're not gonna get into what happened, but we spoke regarding the improvements that the west of Hudson needs and regarding accessibility, because New Jersey Transit is way behind when it comes to accessibility, especially when it comes to west of Hudson territory. And hear this, Randy, and New Jersey Transit didn't even have signs that says alternative routes where accessibility people could use when an elevator is broken down. And Chris and Deborah were in attendance this past Thursday in the Port Authority meeting, and we raised the same issue, and all three of us and we raised the concern that New Jersey is against congestion pricing. And I raised it especially in New Jersey Transit, because I've been seeing that New Jersey is against congestion pricing. We don't know why. Political reasons could be the main reason, but we need to raise awareness that we are the artery of the Northeast, and we should raise awareness that we are the artery, and this is why we need to be a favor of congestion pricing and not against, because New Jersey Transit uses the East River tunnels to store their equipment during the middays. Think about that. And that's why I told them why you guys are against congestion pricing to begin with. Because you guys both use both sides of the tunnel to access to store your trains.
That's a good point. All right,
So
Rich is,
I'll pass, Rich, can you hear us?
You hear me?
Oh, beautiful.
All right, Richard, I'll pass it to you now.
You-
Thank you, and, Jason.
Yeah, I got a message. There was a Zoom update software,
So,
and I had to do that.
all right, so you're up, Rich.
Okay. On low bridges, we met with Anne Marie Bonelli, Deputy Chief
Yeah,
Engineer
O'Neill.
Structures. We spent the entire morning looking at the 4 low bridges. Just to go back, they're about 10 feet high. The highest is 11. Obviously, they're very dangerous. We also talked about other low bridges in Orange County that Anne Marie asked for our help. And I said I would go to those other towns, take a picture, and work with her. So current status is she instructed the inspectors to inspect the low bridges and come up with a plan. And we should have that soon. And then we can look at the options for LED signage and even lowering the street level grade in some areas where it will not affect the structure. So we're moving along, and thank you, Anne Marie. Everybody's on top of this because it's very dangerous. And I guess next meeting is in about a month, but we're moving forward, and it's great news. On the,
excuse me, Rich, can you,
I'm sorry.
tell us Anne Marie's last name and her title again, please?
Bonilla, Bonilla.
Yeah,
What
Deputy
is it?
Chief, Deputy Chief Engineer Structures,
Deputy Chief Engineer of what?
Structures.
Okay, great. And you have this spelling in front of you? Okay.
On the Orange County, I finally got a letter from Harry Poor. And thank you, Randy, for reaching out because he didn't respond to my email, my voicemail. But I did get a letter and I think I forwarded onto the council, correct?
Yes. Well,
Everyone got a copy of the letter, correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so, he said he spoke to Kathy, the president, and I think it's in the budget for 2024.
We
If
could
I
follow
remember
up.
the letter,
Lisa, can this staff follow up on that?
yeah, and what also I'm trying to do, we have the TAC project for Harriman. We had a meeting last night and it's still in preliminary stage because it's very big. Talking about 150-acre development, residential, commercial, next to the train station. And Anne Marie said, if you can get the applicant to contribute money to build the new shelters, that's even better than taking out of her capital budget. But the only problem is we're a year away from preliminary approval. And that's the only time we can discuss amenities like a new fire truck or police protection or vehicles or amenities for the train station. So I couldn't even bring it up at the meeting, but I'm still going to keep it on the agenda. But as soon as we get to preliminary site approval, I'll put it on the table. But either way, it's going to be a good thing, whether the TAC contributes money or the 2024 capital budget gets approved. So I'm leaning towards the developer, so we'll see.
I think that probably the timing is gonna be about the same.
Yeah.
So if the timing for the next capital plan development is gonna be about the same time that you're having the conversation with the developer, and the likelihood of it, this is my own surmising, the likelihood of it being earlier in the plan is increased if somebody else is gonna help pay for it.
Yeah. Okay, well, they're before us every 2 months, giving us an update. And like last night was about the wells on the property needed renovation or upgrades. So when they come back in 2 months, we'll see where they are.
All right, thank you very much, Rich. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, new business, social media contact. Oh, Kara. You're up.
Yes. So most of the social media, and communications that we've been getting have been about, mostly Grand Central Madison and just connections and looking at the combo ticket and ways to connect between, Metro North and Long Island Railroad, particularly with the new timetables, but there have not been many complaints or, questions that we've been getting for Metro North specifically lately. It's mostly been, Long Island Railroad and relating to connecting between the.
Okay.
I just want to tell for a sec about a project that Liam is working on with our new intern, who is not here today. Liam is, our intern is not, which is looking at fares and fare policy and how to rationalize it a little bit so that when there is better integration between Long Island Railroad and Metro North service, that you can do what seamless transfer with the extra 15 minutes. That the fare policy, the fares are less confusing. So we'll have that going on now for the next few months.
All righty. So,
Peter has his hand up.
okay,
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Kara. In terms of the connecting, was there any particular overriding, concerns or issues that have been arisen with, I guess, Long Island Railroad commuters or riders who are they looking to connect into the building? Are they unfamiliar with the building? Is there anything that we can, take in and pass on to my colleagues?
Yeah, it's mostly about signage, just people having trouble finding exactly how to get from, say, the platform level at Grand Central Madison to the subway, and then connecting onto Metro North, and also just questions about, not specifics, but about whether there will be timed connections and whether people can expect to, say, go from Westchester to transfer to the Long Island Railroad and go to JFK, and whether those connections will be lined up so that people will not have a larger transfer time. But beyond signage and wayfinding, there haven't been too many specific questions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can, bring that to a couple of folks. I think President Rinaldi, said obviously there's a lot of, it's an iterative process. So in terms of the wayfinding, she's already, mentioned in our press events, and I'm sure next week at the board meeting, she'll reiterate that, that they're, kind of, reevaluate and see if there are any gaps both in the, GCM and certainly in the terminal, obviously understanding the terminal, has a historic nature. So, that's something to consider. On the combo ticket, I know there hasn't been a tremendous amount, for obvious reasons, of marketing or campaign about, the combo ticket. So I'm in touch with our, marketing folks. I don't have any of the creative, so I can't even share that with you or exactly, but, obviously expect to be, we'll use our MTA digital assets to promote that service. Regarding the time service, I'm sure that'll be the operations planning folks. They will be, looking at evaluating it. That will also include, looking into partnerships. It's no secret that, UBS Arena is obviously at the Elmont station, and certainly working with the tenant there, the Islanders, despite being a Rangers fan. It's obviously good business. So I foresee partnerships and relationships building, and if that means people who live in the Bronx, Lower Westchester, Lower Fairfield County, want to connect on Metro North and then take a 1-seat ride from Grand Central Madison to UBS Arena and get to the Elmont station. Certainly that'll be one of the opportunities that we foresee. As we have the MTA Away program, so certainly we have partners there. So we're going to be certainly partnering with the different entities to let them know that you can get a seamless connection from Metro North to Long Island Railroad, or vice versa, to get to your destination. Certainly there'll be, again, as I said, the operations planning folks will be looking at various patterns and trends. Certainly that includes the wayfinding. So if I come into Grand Central Terminal, say I come into track 35, what is the easiest way for me to get down to the Grand Central Madison, levels and concourses and tracks, obviously. And, is there a somewhat easy connection? So I would say more to come on that. So.
Don't forget the connections to Citi Field.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a diehard Mets fan, so yes, I'm very much aware. But yeah, again, I think everything is certainly a discussion point or an opportunity. As the service, goes live on the 27th, and Metro North is scheduled in Q1 to have a normal Q1 service, change where we, do some tweaks on our schedule. So again, all these things will be, looked at, and obviously baseball season begins in April. So, and it's not just, Mets, obviously Citi Field's one, but Yankee Stadium, despite the fact that I'm a diehard Mets fan, There's people obviously in Nassau County, Suffolk County. We want to, let them know about that opportunity in case they don't want to use the subway. So again, the combo ticket, there'll be a lot of discussions and promotion about that in the coming weeks, I presume.
Thank you very much for that.
I have when Metro North does their Q1 service change update, will that be done in conjunction with the Long Island Railroad or looking at the schedules? Do you know what the relationship and that consideration will be?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. The Long Island Railroad schedule has been pretty much, out there for, several months in terms of what their planned service schedule for Penn Station and Grand Central Madison was. I can't speak to, where, all the details of that. I'll let, the operations folks speak to that, when that time comes and they're able to discuss it.
We have some questions in the room, and you've got Richard, Christopher, and Deborah. Chris, have your hand up first.
Yeah, mine will be simple. I actually agree with Cara because today, as Carmel Q asked me to recheck signage because there are some, the bathroom signs have been added also in the easier levels for a person can see. But we're also have to recheck some areas because there has been concern that 2 elevators that goes down to the lower mezzanine to the upper. There has been concern that elevator's been going out. There is a freight elevator for the wheelchairs and walkers and canes who cannot use the escalators, but Carmel Q is really concerned about that. So we do need to, he wants to add additional elevator because 2 elevators may not be enough. That's going to be a major transit hub.
At least so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not necessarily the right person on the specifics on the accessibility. I do know, the Biltmore room on the Metro North side. There is going to be an elevator and accessibility built that's in progress. It's still under, completion. So that will be an added point of accessibility for folks. But yes, I mean, they're, looking at what they have in place, and they will continue to, monitor and manage, the elevators, the escalators. Clearly when their service goes live on the 27th, and obviously I'm on the Metro North side, but my colleagues, who will be managing, station and terminal operations will be, looking and monitoring to see what is happening, what trends are happening. Because again, it's still going to be fairly new to people. I know there's a number of people who've been, still going into Penn Station and waiting for, the full service to come and play before they start using that service that goes directly into GCM. So again, there'll be a lot of, evaluation and monitoring in the coming weeks.
Lisa, it's Walter wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, this is for Peter. Peter, how are plans coming along for the Metro North 40th anniversary celebration?
I'm actually missing a call in regards to some of the pictures and slides they're working on, so I don't know anything else right now that's in plan or progress.
I thought that happened.
Is there a plan to
one, right?
Well, we did do something obviously in January for employees, but in terms of a public facing or something to the customers, I'm not aware of anything specific that they're planning. I know there had been discussions about combining a 40th with the 110 of Grand Central Terminal, but I think there's been other either priorities or other initiatives that have been being worked on at the moment.
Because we had heard some talk about an event during April, a public event during April. Is there nothing happening with that?
I'm not aware of anything in terms of the public. Again, we did something, President Rinaldi did something for the employees, very specific employee event. But they haven't expanded upon that at this moment that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have,
Okay.
Deborah Peter. Hi,
Yeah.
Rep. I'm concerned, Peter, about, I am a person who uses a mobility device. And honestly, I'm gonna tell you, I don't like really going on freight elevators if I really don't have to. And that's why I also testified at the Port Authority, because they're responsible for the elevators at Jamaica. But I'm concerned, and I would hope that you will make sure that also you advertise not only your packages, you need to also advertise for the seniors and persons like myself with disabilities, that you'll have Metro North chairs that can assist, if I'm getting off a Metro North train, I can have someone meet me, like they do at Long Island Railroad. They meet me at the train, escort me off, and help me get over the train that goes out to Long Island. Also, the seniors and I'm now a senior, when you have packages, they also offer the seniors and persons with disabilities, if we qualify for half day, that we can get a discount. I hope you'll be doing that, because if I want to go out to City Field, it's actually more accessible if I go on the Long Island Railroad than to go on the number 7 train.
That's something we're working on.
I know, but I just wanted to know that, because I live in an area where there's major Met bands. Go out to, and a lot of them have disabilities, and the one big thing they get pissed about.
We're working on it.
I know
yeah.
you are, but
Okay.
I'm just saying, but they also want to know, are there gonna be package deals, like also when you go,
I don't think that, Peter. Yeah.
putting it out there.
Okay, thank you.
Richard.
Just in terms of wayfaring inside Grand Central, like, you know, the Grand Central Madison, they hand out these little maps that's like, you know, here's the concourse, and here are the escalators down to
Right.
the mezzanine. But I kept trying to look for like the big overview of, here's the new Grand Central Madison concourse, and as it relates to Grand Central Terminal. So, you know, it's like there's no one single picture of both of them stuck together, so that you know, like, oh, I essentially have to walk down the west side concourse and kind of sweep around the south into Grand Central Terminal. Or I think you can hit the passageways and walk along the.
That's where I got lost, hopelessly lost one
Right.
time. Yeah.
But, you know, I'm just looking for a map that has the entire Grand Central Madison plus Grand Central Terminal that you can look at in one shot and go like, oh yeah, I can walk around and find it. I couldn't even find it online, even if you didn't print one yet, if I can
No, you're
find it online.
100% correct.
Took a picture, I found one of them.
Very
At the
nice.
Grand Central Madison, but, Hector Garcia did send me a link, I can forward it if you guys.
But it's not easy.
Yeah, but
You're right,
Yeah,
everybody
right.
gets lost.
They're still
Yeah.
gonna get lost.
So, I mean, for people who have time and ability, not everybody has both, understand that. But for me, the best way to navigate is to get lost. But I was on a Saturday night, the only person in one of those corridors, except for 2 guys who were vaping, thinking that they shouldn't be vaping, A, at all in the terminal, and B, definitely not in the terminal. And so it was a little like, why am I in a dark, scary corridor? When this is not where I really want to be. So, oh, great, Peter, what's the, we'll copy that link and share it.
Yeah, if I can find the Grand Central Terminal map, I'll let you know, but this is the current Grand Central Madison map that's in the chat. So that's accessible. It's physically displayed on the concourse at Grand Central Madison as well. Again, if people are mobile inclined, they can pull it up obviously on their mobile device as they're walking through the building. But again, you know, there's going to be other possibilities that we will, you know, look into and consider. So this is not the end all be all, but this is, you know, currently what's in place.
Does that include the overlay of Grand Central Terminal?
It does not. This is just specifically to the GCM
Yeah.
spaces.
So I think that's what Richard is suggesting, I think that's great, so that you can see where you go, you know, from one
Like, how does this connect
Yeah,
to
what is
Grand
it-
Central?
Right, where is it?
Like, well, you go around the bottom. It's like,
Right,
well,
what's the big?
If
You
I
know-
suggest, if I could suggest people actually look at this, it is pretty clear. It shows all the connections to Grand Central. It doesn't have a floor map of Grand Central, but if you review the view,
You know,
the link, I think.
I know it says that, but it's like, there's just this visual picture of like, where am I standing now and where do I need
Yeah,
to
but
walk?
it doesn't really tell you.
Right.
It's 100% right, because you're not even like making sure that we have to be completely on the west side to go into the Madison.
Like,
A little bit.
Right,
Can you scroll up a little?
see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
He's
so-
right.
You know, the 47th Street link. You know, you have to like look at it and go, oh, look, to Metro North tracks 11 to 42. But the kind of general impression is like all the white, you know, I have to walk all the way down and around to get into Grand Central Terminal, you know. pop
Looking
up.
at a map, yeah, no, it's.
Yeah,
it's,
but
you
if
know
I
what?
had a big map of Grand Central Madison plus Grand Central Terminal next to each other, it's like, oh, yeah.
I'm gonna bet that within a couple of weeks, somebody's gonna be happy to sell you that.
Yeah.
Right, or I can pop out on Lexington and Park Avenues if I cross the East 47th Street passageway or something. But it also doesn't look like it shows the escalator down to mezzanine and platforms, but there's also like this hidden passageway that's not
Yeah.
completely present that evidently goes due east from like East
Like
47th.
where you see it's like to Metro North tracks 102 to
Yeah,
114.
yeah, 11.
That's, and then what? Right?
Down
No,
here,
it's
yeah.
like up, right where it says the first to mezzanine and platforms, if you go up a little bit there.
Yeah.
And it's, then it's that little tiny, my doctor would be so proud of me, my eye doctor.
Yeah.
But then where you go, you see the stairs, right?
Yeah.
So it would be good to see like almost a two-dimensional or three-dimensional,
Once
build out.
you
Or-
lay out the way that it shows
Yeah.
you what's.
And then while we're there, cause you walk down a corridor and stuff, so
Or
we're gonna do a little walkthrough.
the other thing I'd like to know is like, what am I in for? So it's like, oh, there's a little staircase icon. It's like, okay, I start. It's like, wait, I'm going up like 3 stories, and then and there's another like 5 miles this way because I don't know where the scale is on this map of how big.
You know, the, Long Island Cares people have been telling us that the seniors are getting really nervous and upset because it's such a long walk. But when you come off the Metro North to go to Long Island Railroad, that's a really long walk.
But you know what, there's shortcuts, but
Yeah.
you just have to find them.
Yes.
The one, just to add one thing,
Are they accessible?
when we.
Hold on, wait,
yeah,
let's see if, let's just make sure, yep.
Yeah. No, just adding, what Debbie and I did, because we walked where 47th was, we took an elevator there.
Yep.
There were signs there, but 48, lucky there's an officer there.
There's a one sign outside.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
only thing, that's when Carmel Q wanted me to check, and there is nothing,
There's
because
one sign that right outside the elevator, but nothing that points you
Correct.
to the elevator in the
Correct.
middle of the block.
unless you go to
Correct.
47, there is, but not
Okay.
48.
I know that there, was the Grand Central Partnership had put up a couple of banners, but, hopefully they'll put up some more outside that shows you entrance to Grand Central Madison is here,
Agreed.
on the lamppost outside.
Okay, great. All right, if there's anything else, let's go around.
Walter, you had wanted to raise something about, that you shared in an email with me?
No, what? You shared an email with her? You shared something in email with her? She was doing-
About Harmon?
Harmon, about the, was it the-
Oh, yes, well, it isn't really a big concern for our committee, but I'm getting a couple of so-called, let's say, complaints from people who live in the village of Croton on Hudson, who are getting very concerned about what they say is an excessive noise coming from the Harmon shop facilities. And I've heard this before, and I thought I put them in touch with people at Metro North, and I thought it was resolved. And Mark Mannix was involved working on it. And Mark told me he thought it was all satisfied, but no, apparently not. And these folks want to know who they should be talking to. Well, they want to talk to me, but I can't do anything about this. I explained to them, what our role is here. And so who is the person at Metro North who basically replaced Mark Mannix? So I can get these people to that
She
person.
sent you the information.
It's
And-
Andy Booter. However, this matter has been brought to Kathy, it's been brought to elected officials, it's been brought to a bunch of stuff. It's still in the works. But if you have any more complaints, you can send it to Andy Booter. As its current state, I don't know where it is right now, but I do know that even Will Schwartz was addressing it. So that's all the information I have. I don't know what has been the outcome as of late. It's definitely, like you said, been in the works since Mark was here.
Well, I'm glad to know it's in the works, and I will pass the name on to these folks and
Let me
them.
let me send it in the group chat. Andy Booter and his email. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
All right, so if there's nothing else, I guess we come to that part of the meeting where I ask for a motion to adjourn. But before I do that, I just want to say our next get together as a council will be on April the 20th. And I hope to see all of you, at least on Zoom, if you can't make it to the city, on March the 2nd for the PCAC meeting. And I'll ask for a motion.
I just
Motion to
want to
adjourn.
ask,
Come on.
if in April, if you want to meet in the city or in White Plains, you don't have to let us know now.
Okay,
Or if there's another location, or in a couple of different locations. But,
I'll be back in New York, so it doesn't matter to me where I go. So I'm open
Right,
to
but
it.
in terms of other members, we can discuss further.
Yeah, sure,
but-
sure.
And also, just as a follow-up from our last meeting, when there was discussion from the members who met with County Executive Latimer, we've shared a draft letter with Randy as a follow-up that will get to you hopefully later today.
I'll have to look at it. I've been busy. I've been tied up all day with meetings and car.
Yeah, no, right.
I'll get
Just
to
sent
it.
it over for this meeting.
I
To
did
look
see it.
at, get over to them and get that.
Okay. All right, I will take care of that. All right, motion to adjourn. A second? All right,
So much,
thank you,
thank you.
everybody. Bye.